Good afternoon. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Cupertino and the League of Women Voters, I'd like to welcome everyone to this candidate forum for the Cupertino Union School District. We are pleased to have the League of Women Voters as a partner to put on this community-wide event. Voting is an important responsibility we all have as citizens, and it has become a tradition for our Rotary Club to sponsor forums such as this one, where the community can hear from those running for office. This year, in the face of the pandemic, it is even more important that we provide this opportunity for you to hear from the candidates and learn what each stands for, so as citizens, you can make an informed decision in selecting who will represent you on the important overseeing of the Cupertino Union School District. I want to thank Marianne Shovlin from the League and her support team for their time and effort they have put into organizing and preparing this event. And I would also like to thank our past president, Judy Wilson, for acting as coordinator from our end to make this forum possible. And of course, thank you to the candidates for taking time from their busy schedule to be here so we may all learn a little more about each one. Thank you for attending. And as a parent and a former teacher, I am really looking forward to hearing the view of all the candidates. And now I will turn it over to our moderator from the League of Women Voters, Marianne Shovlin.
Thank you, Stuart. And let me add my welcome to yours. And I am Marianne Shovlin, and I am the Communications Director for the League of Women Voters of Cupertino-Sunnyvale. Today's candidate forum will run about 90 minutes. Just a couple comments about Zoom. Attendees will be in a listen-only mode, and the forum is being recorded. If you have a technical issue, please email techsupport@lwvcs.org and you will be helped. Before we get to the purpose of this webinar, here's some background information about who the League is and about voting in the November election. The League has been empowering voters and defending democracy for 100 years. We were founded in February 1920, just 6 months before women won the right to vote through the passage of the 19th Amendment. We do have two distinct functions done separately through two different corporations. One that does voter education, of which today's event is an example, and the other, which after extensive study takes positions and then, as appropriate, advocates for the passage of laws. Regarding the November election, when you get your ballot, pay attention to how they list your name. Is it first and last, or is it first, middle, and last name? Sign your name in the same way as it is shown on the envelope. It needs to match the way you sign when you register to vote or when you signed your driver's license. There's been a lot in the press about mail-in voting and the post office. Because California passed the Voters' Choice Act, you have several options on how to vote and how to deliver your ballot. You may deliver your ballot by mail, but please mail early. Place your ballot in a drop box or deliver your ballot to a voter center. These centers replace the community polling stations. So now you may be asking, how do I find a vote center or a vote box or drop box? The good news is it's very simple. Go to the URL shown or capture the QR code. Go to the web to go to the site, enter your address and your drop-off locations, and vote centers will be listed. Please wait a couple of weeks from now as the site is currently being updated for the November election. And we always recommend that you check your voter registration status. Also very easy to do. Use the URL or QR code to go to the site and enter your name, your California driver license, or your California ID card number, the last 4 numbers of your social security code, and your birthday. If you get retry, you should probably register again. To say that the California ballot can be challenging is an understatement. We have some good news. votersedge.org. Voters Edge California, or VEC, is a joint project of MapLight and the League of Women Voters of California. Voters Edge California is a comprehensive, nonpartisan online guide to elections covering federal, state, and local races in the state of California and state and local ballot measures. And it also includes campaign finance information. This is my go-to resource when I am completing my ballot. Okay, let's get started. We have 4 candidates for 2 Cupertino Union School District seats, each with a 4-year term. On the screen, you can see the candidates' names, faces, and websites where you can get more information about each candidate. The candidates have agreed to the format and ground rules for this forum. I will pose questions which are gathered in advance. Each question has a designated response time of 90 seconds, 60 seconds, or less. A timer is visible in the separate box labeled timer and will give candidates visual signals to help them pace their responses and stop on time. Each candidate should be responsive to the questions, civil in their responses, may not interrupt another candidate or the moderator, and may not make any remarks that are personal in nature or directed at any individual, and all responses are to be in English. If a candidate violates the ground rules more than twice, the candidate will be removed from the forum. Each candidate also has one 30-second rebuttal opportunity they may use to rebut remarks from any of the other candidates. They may not use the rebuttal time to just add their own comments or to go off topic. At this time, I'm asking all the candidates to unmute and to turn on their videos. And now I want to extend my welcome to Will, Sudha, Sylvia, and Phyllis. We're going to jump right in. The speaking order was randomly drawn, and that will shift with each question. The speaking order for the first question will be Sudha, Phyllis, Will, and Sylvia. The first question, which all candidates will be answering: why are you qualified to be on the Cupertino Union School District Board? Sudha?
Hi, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. My name is Sudha Kasamsetty. I have a master's degree in computer engineering and have been an engineering leader for the past 19 years. I've been a resident of Cupertino for the past 16 years and have raised 2 children in CUSD schools, with my younger one currently enrolled in the district. I've had the pleasure of participating as an active parent volunteer in various school programs such as PTA Reflections, and Project Cornerstone, and I have probably taken up every volunteering job out there in our elementary school. My life has been around kids. I've been running a dance school in Cupertino for the past 15 years. I'm a unique mix of liberal arts and STEM for our kids. I've organized and led Women Tech conferences, bringing together more than 1,500 women leaders. I'm on the CUSD Advisory Committee. I'm a Finance Commissioner for City of Cupertino, a board member for Dianza Lions Club International, and founder of CUSD Parent Focus Group, with parents representing from all the schools. I have full understanding of how to make our K-8 education in line with our industry demands and what it means for the future of our kids. Apart from being a good listener, I'm a strong collaborative negotiator, and my experience as a successful entrepreneur proves that. Our district in particular is plagued with big financial issues, and there is an urgent need to fix that. There is a need for increased parent engagement now more so than ever. That's one of the things I will bring to the board, and one of the reasons I want to run for the board. I'm experienced, action-oriented, and a go-getter. Thank you.
Okay, and now Phyllis.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to both Rotary and the League of Women Voters, and thanks to all the participants for joining us today. I have been on the school board for the past 13 years, 3 of those years as president. Prior to that, I was on staff in Cupertino for a number of years as a teacher, principal, and assistant superintendent. I have actually been over 5 decades with the Cupertino Union School District. A lot of accomplishments have occurred during my tenure. One of them is student achievement, which I think is the hallmark of any good school district. And we have continued to be in the top of the state for student achievement. We've recruited and retained personnel. We have kept competitive salaries in spite of shrinking budgets. We've maintained fiscal solvency, and we've increased communication and transparency through community and staff listening sessions, public comment at board meetings, town hall meetings, which are run by our superintendent, budget roadshows, which another board member and I participate in, board office hours, and many committees. We have challenges facing our district, significant challenges, the pandemic, declining enrollment, and our budget shortfall. I think my experience and my leadership skills can help us to solve those problems over the next 4 years. Thank you.
And Will, why are you qualified?
Well, first of all, thank you, League, for this opportunity, and hello, fellow Rotarians, good people, and others. 2 years ago, when I threw my hat into this foray, my son was just starting kindergarten. I admit I was totally green behind the ears. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I immediately identified that finances was a pretty big issue. And it still is, unfortunately. 2 years later, it has not improved. It's unfortunately gotten worse. And so that's my top priority, really, is trying to work on our budget, making sure we can keep our schools open and fund things and keep our teachers, retain the important staff we need to take care of our kids. I got involved with the Measure H bond committee. That helped me see even more how we spend our very important tax dollars. Infrastructure is not so great nowadays. Some of it's 40 years old. We need to work on that a little more. I got involved in the Measure O parcel tax. That hurt pretty bad this past spring. We really need that money to help our teachers stick around. Other things I'm involved in is actually getting local funding, equitable funding across all sites with my involvement in CUSD United. I want to fix this. I want to take care of things. But right now, the big problem really is this pandemic. Safety first is number one. I just had a marathon cross-country trip to get to New York for my mom's funeral. I saw America so different from where we are right now. I mean, my hometown of Cohoes, New York had kids out on the field playing in cohorts. That is inspiring, but it's also scary. So let's be right.
Thank you. Sylvia.
Thank you, and thanks for hosting this forum. My qualifications begin with the fact that I was unanimously appointed from a field of 16 other candidates because of my long track record of parent leadership and student advocacy in the district. Whether it was serving as a walking school bus leader, graduation chair, wrestling team mom, or CLIPCO president, I've spent years working together with other parents, teachers, and students to solve problems and build community. I even got my emergency teaching credential so that I could help substitute teach in our classrooms. Professionally, I bring 20 years of experience in education leadership as a former ESL teacher and as an admissions director at USC, Carnegie Mellon, and reader at UC Berkeley. I understand what student success looks like, and I've brought all of that experience and perspective with me as I govern our district today. In the 2 years that I've been on the board, I've pushed to increase communication and transparency, made decisions that kept our district financially healthy, and advocated tirelessly for our students' holistic education. We have ongoing challenges, but I believe our current board is the best equipped to keep our schools successful and our students thriving. And it's not just me who believes it. I've been endorsed by parents and community leaders across the district, and both our teachers union and school staff union have chosen to endorse only me and Phyllis. They understand the complexity of the issues and they know who they want solving them. Thank you.
Thank you. There seems to be, now we have questions that were submitted in advance. And one of those is, there seems to be an overwhelming concern for two issues that must be resolved: COVID-19 and school financing. We'll start off this round of questions with Phyllis. And let's start with the COVID-19 issue. With the current COVID-19 environment, how would you engage all stakeholders, including parents and teachers, in conversations on how to effectively address learning and teaching? Phyllis? Please unmute.
Sorry about that. We had a committee formed over the summer of parents and stakeholders, teachers and others, who helped us to determine how we would begin the school year this year. And so the suggestion came to the board, some suggestions came to the board, and we opted to wait until January, stay in distance learning until January. Now, as things are changing and improving, we're looking at continuing distance learning until then. And but looking at ways that we can bring students back in small cohorts or for outdoor activities. There was a second part of that question that I've lost.
Effectively addressing involving parents and teachers in learning.
Okay, and so for the distance learning piece, we have done quite a lot of professional development over the summer with our teachers. We know that in the spring, when it came so fast, it was a little problematic, but I think going forward, the professional development is helping the students to thrive and learn in the distance learning environment. Thank you.
And Will, how would you engage all stakeholders in the learning and teaching process?
So like I mentioned in my introductory, I really want to look around the country and even around the world and see what's working, what's not working. I know that Santa Clara here, we're one of the strictest in the nation, possibly in the world, with how we're doing things in our reopenings. San Francisco just turned to orange. I think we can start looking a little bit. I know that, and I commended the school board for committing to the end of the year, but I mean, I have a second grader, he's an only kid. His social emotional is just crashing. He's so in need of interaction with other people of his age. And so I want to really seriously look at our fields and getting tents out there and getting our kids out into the fields at least, at the minimum. Get them out there in small cohorts. I know the parents would love that. Some parents are coming to me saying, well, I'm paying $1,200 in tuition at a special third party just so they can watch my kid, and they're not getting the education they need. And it's a public school. You know, we got to fund our schools, but you shouldn't be paying some third party to watch your kid during the day, unfortunately. So I feel the pain of the parents.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Sure. So there's definitely a lot of different things that we can do to address the stakeholders. One is the town halls that the superintendent is doing. Another is board office hours. All of these things have been so well attended. I think as a board member, for me, it's really important to speak with not just parents and students, but also with teachers and seeing what's going on. I've actually been able to visit several classes in the last few weeks and really at different levels. And I do think that the experience differs depending on the grade level of the student. The kinder families are going to have a very different response than our middle school families. We do see some of the same concerns, such as the amount of screen time, the amount of physical activity, concern for authentic learning. And so some of the things that we've done to address those things, such as creating opportunities for connection between teachers and our students to build that relationship, as well as looking at opportunities to bring back small cohorts of students for some sort of outdoor activity once it's safe to do so. Thank you.
And Sudha. Sudha, please unmute.
Sorry about that. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We all know that it was not a great experience before summer. I actually started a distance learning survey for parents during summer, and more than 375 parents responded, and I sent the summary of the results to the board. This summer, definitely it's better, but there is a room for continuous improvement. We need to do comparative analysis with our neighboring schools, lose our rigidity, and constantly improve. We need to be taking feedback from all the stakeholders of our community, parents, kids, and our teachers. We could use better use of, Wednesday time and office hours, and encourage whiteboarding sessions for our teachers and newsletters, and balance screen time. And it's very important also to address the mental health of our students. And with respect to reopening our schools, I wish we had that flexibility on the board to reassess the situation and make a collaborative decision. Thank you.
Okay. Some of you have responded to this next question in part, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's more specific. This is two parts. The schools in Santa Clara County received the green light to begin reopening campuses for in-person learning with safety measures in place. Under the new 4-tier color-coded framework from the state, the county moved from the purple category, widespread transmission, to red, substantial transmission, and remained in that category for 2 weeks. That was the requirement to meet before in-person learning could resume. The first part of the question is, do you support this plan? And the second part is, are these the right criteria? If not, under what criteria should CUSD open the schools? And let's start with Will.
Okay, great question. So sure, the 4 tiers makes sense to me. I get it. Like I said, I'm glad San Francisco's in orange. That's a beacon for us to shoot for, to get to that. There are other parts of the country that are doing things a little differently. Some may say it's a little riskier, some may not. I really want to understand why we're sending kids back. You know, we don't want them to just be sitting there and gearing up, you know, drop everything and read. They can do that at home. But for gym class, PE, science labs, like things like that, the really important stuff that need to be on campus to do hands-on and in person, those are top priority. IEP, my son has an IEP. We need to get the kids that need a little more attention back on campus as soon as possible. Those kids are struggling, they're falling behind like crazy, and we gotta focus on them. So I would like to focus on those more, those populations first. And then let's just see how the rest of the county goes, and let's watch our neighbors and collaborate and work together with our neighbors. That's it. Safety first.
Sylvia, how do you feel about this? Are these the right criteria, and do you support the plan?
Yeah, I think the reality is that this has been a moving target as the criteria keeps changing as we go along. And we saw that very clearly at the beginning when the pandemic was really getting up to speed. I'm part of the Santa Clara County School Boards Association. We actually meet almost every week to check in and see how as a region and as each of our districts are doing, and evaluating and seeing for opportunities for bulk purchasing and ways to work together. My priorities in all of this are to maximize safety, maximize learning, minimize disruption, and minimize stress while supporting our families and our staff in the social and emotional well-being. A lot of it does have to do with testing. We do need more testing availability. Actually, a couple weeks ago, Santa Clara Public Health said that they needed more of our other partners, medical partners, to step up and do more of that testing, because right now it's very difficult for our teachers to get that testing when it's only available from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So there's a lot of moving pieces that come into play.
All right, thank you. And Sudha, how do you feel about this?
Hi, I switched off my video for internet connection, but let me switch it on. Hi. Yes, I am with the criteria that the Santa Clara County of Education is providing. And as I mentioned in my previous question, I do understand that safety is very important and nobody's against that. And I understand that board has decided to go for distance learning until January, but I absolutely feel that we should have that flexibility to reassess and make everything or work towards everything regarding the safety and have a proper definition of safety from our district perspective. And I think we need to work with our neighboring schools, lose our rigidity and make up decisions. Like, for example, I came to know before I dialed in that Palo Alto Unified is actually up for reopening our schools. We should learn lessons and we should understand what's working and work with our district as well. Thank you.
Okay, and Phyllis.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with the county criteria. As Sylvia said, it's a moving target. We pay close attention to it. Our superintendent actually meets regularly with the other superintendents throughout the 31 school districts in our county, and they are collaborating and working together and making decisions about all of the districts, even though they're not all exactly the same. I take a pretty conservative approach to this. The health of our students and our staff is really important to me. So I want to move slowly. I don't want us to get in a position where we're going back to in-person learning and then having to back out again. I agree with what everyone else has said in terms of bringing back small cohorts, moving slowly, getting kids outside, improving the social interactions with the kids. Hopefully those things can all come back sooner than later. But I definitely want to take a conservative approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next question is about the current 4-phase framework for school reopening, with the phases being 1, distance learning, 2, targeted learning, 3, hybrid learning, and 4, traditional learning. What is your position on that 4 framework? Let's start with Sudha for this one.
Yes, I appreciate that the board has taken the 4-phased approach, but I'm also a little disappointed where there is a lot of data missing. I pretty much logged in every board meeting from last few months, and I have been listening to parents asking questions repeatedly, asking for timelines, asking for criteria, asking for data as to what are the qualifying factors so that the kids can go back to schools. And for any of the 4-phased approaches that we have, none of them are available today. As to there is no clarity on the timelines of each phase, no clarity on what is that cohort, what is that definition of cohort, and who is qualified for each cohort for every phase. And I think we need to be absolutely rolling that down. We need to learn from other districts who are ahead of us in terms of putting that data out, laying the data, and there's a lot more clarity in the parent community as to what's happening. So I think that's my suggestion for the board, to come up with the timelines and make sure that there is that absolute transparent communication to the parent community. Thank you.
Okay. And Phyllis, how do you feel about this?
I'm very much supportive of the 4 phases. I know based upon the last report we got from the district that our Educational Services Division is working hard on the targeted part, which is the 2nd phase, where we would bring back small groups and do some of these outdoor things to make sure that that happens safely. My biggest concern about the phases is about phase 3, and that's the hybrid. I'm concerned about I'm concerned about teacher workload, and I'm concerned about how they will manage all the various moving parts that happen in the hybrid model. So I think that's the one that I probably have the most concern about how we're going to implement it, but I believe the rest of the phases are on target.
Okay. How about you, Will?
This one's interesting to me. Maybe it's time we actually look at our education system a little differently, because the reality is there's probably not going to be going back to normal again. Everything has shifted in our world here. And this is an opportunity for us to just kind of rip off the Band-Aid and see if we can change this education system a little bit. Let's embrace our small classroom sizes. Like, I love a 12-to-1 teacher ratio. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that something we should shoot for? Why do we need 33 kids in 4th grade? So let's think through that a little more, and let's get the salaries right. Let's get our compensation packages right. Let's treat teachers the way they should be treated. They should be paid like doctors and lawyers and engineers, not just some civil servant. Let's turn this upside down and take this opportunity to kind of change things. Let's change it finally. We're not just churning out factory workers anymore. We're turning out critical thinkers and problem solvers. So let's embrace this a little bit. Let's flip this and check out the silver linings. Work with me on it.
And Sylvia?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, what is your position on the current 4-phase framework for learning with the distance, targeted, hybrid, and traditional?
Yeah, so I definitely, like Phyllis, agree with the framework of the 4 phases. One thing to keep in mind is that the phases aren't necessarily chronological. In fact, we're in phase 1 doing distance learning 100%, but we're also implementing phase 2 at the same time, because we are starting to bring back small groups of students, especially those who've been disproportionately disadvantaged by distance learning. In terms of a timeline, the reality is the virus doesn't care about our timelines. And that's one of the things that we've seen, even with the governor's 4-color tier system. There aren't timelines attached to that either, because we really have to look and see where the virus is going, what's happening regionally, what's happening in our county, and those things. Regardless of what phase we're in, what's important to me is that we are making sure that our students are getting the best education that they can. I'm excited because some of those things that need to happen need to be systemic changes, not just, things. And while I love the fact that our parent, teacher, and organizations have done things to help with social and emotional learning, we also need to do things like changing assessments, which we have. We've been able to do things to create more teacher feedback to ensure for authentic learning. Thank you. Sorry.
And now let's go into financing issues. And we'll start this one with Sylvia. Briefly, when compared to nearby school districts, why has CUSD struggled financially?
So it's, let me see, how do I explain this? So as a district, we are one of the lowest funded districts actually in the state. And the reason is because you take all of the cumulative amount of property tax and you divide it by the number of students that your district serves. And so that number actually turns out to be less than what the state budgets for. And so then the state budgets backfill that amount so that we get just the base funding. That is compounded by the fact that we're surrounded by basic aid districts, which means that those districts actually raise more money than what the state allocates for them. So that's basically why, from a state level, why our funding is so low. I'm sorry, did I answer the question?
Yes. Will, what is your opinion?
That's a piece of it. Thank you for the Budget Roadshow Finance 101, Sylvia, you nailed it there. Another piece of it is parent involvement. Our ed fund, it's been faltering for 20 years now. All the other districts around us have strong ones. Our PTAs and PTOs and homeschool clubs, they can only bring in so much. Parent engagement is dropping. They're donating less year after year. We have to change this. It's broken, it's not working. So tonight at the PTA Council, I'm gonna beg them, be more flexible. It's time to think a little differently about this broken, outdated model. We need to bring in more money from our parents, from our alumni, from our neighbors. Vote on parcel taxes, vote on bonds. Those are key, critical issues. Vote on Prop 15. Change the tax system. It is broken for 40 years. It is wrecking our schools. It's time to make bigger change.
Thank you. And Phyllis, how do you feel about it? Please unmute.
I keep needing these reminders. I'm not going to repeat Sylvia's wonderful explanation about how the schools are funded, and I absolutely agree with Will that we need more help. Another place that we really need help is through our taxing system. The best way we can raise funds is locally. And I think we need to do that through some sort of a ballot measure. That might be a parcel tax like we know it now. It might be a square foot parcel tax, but some way that we can raise local funds that we have the discretion to spend in any way we want. The surrounding districts the surrounding districts that are basic aid have much larger parcel taxes than we do. Our residents are paying $250 a year in parcel tax, and surrounding districts are paying as much as $600 and $700. So I would like to see that change in terms of our financial picture. Thank you.
Okay, Sudha, how do you feel about it?
Yes, CUSD has a very complex formula based on which it's decided whether it is a basic aid or LCFF. I'm not denying that, but we cannot hide under declining enrollment excuse and not think of long-term solutions. We need to think of long-term solutions so we can avoid any future school closures. One example that I have listed on my website is a rolling square footage model for parcel tax. And this is not an imaginary idea. Berkeley residents overwhelmingly approved this square footage measure in 2016. It generates more revenue from other sources without increasing the tax for the homeowners, which is a win-win situation for both of us. And I'll also tap into CUSD Alumni Network, who can help us in corporate funding. And this is also an endowment example from universities. And I will look into prioritization of our existing funds with accountability, transparency, and remove any redundancies over there. And all of the above should be done in parallel, so we bridge the budget gap. Our board should be proactive and not reactive. So yeah, that's where my take is. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is still on the financial area. How critical is the approval of Prop 15 to the CUSD financial survival and success? And let's start with Phyllis on this one.
Okay, Prop 15 is on the ballot, and for those of you who don't know it, it changes the structure a little bit of the old Proposition 13. It has the potential to bring, I believe the analysts are saying somewhere between $5 and $11 million to Cupertino. There are some caveats. One is that it's likely that it will wind up in the courts because there will be some lawsuits which could delay the CUSD seeing that money. So I think that in the long run, it might be good for our district. I do have some questions about how it's going to be implemented. Thank you.
Okay, and Will, how do you feel about it?
We need it. It's a start. You know, like I mentioned, Prop 13 has been around for 40 years. This isn't going to be an overnight systemic change, but we got to start somewhere. And at least by splitting the role and getting our businesses to pay up properly, you know, we're not trying to kick grandma and grandpa out of their house. We're not. We just want to fund our schools properly. Make sure our businesses that are thriving around us, sure, some are hurting. Some small businesses are hurting, but this isn't going to infect them. It's not going to hurt them. Apple can give us a little more money. It could help. That's not a bad deal. Santa Clara got all their spaceship funds. We get their parking lot. Come on. This is at least a step in the right direction. We got to start somewhere. So please vote yes on Prop 15.
And Sudha, how do you feel about it?
This is a tough one. I realize how desperately CUSD needs money right now, but I don't also at the same time like any measure that raises tax, since California has the highest tax and highest tax, and the state government has enough taxes right now. But CUSD truly doesn't have enough to make even ends meet right now. So for CUSD's sake, I'm leaning towards yes, especially after I attended multiple city meetings, and there is a potential to generate between $5 to $11 million towards CUSD. So I'm leaning towards yes.
And Sylvia, let's hear from you.
Sure. Actually, our school board just passed a resolution at our last meeting in favor of Prop 15, and we wanted to be able to send that message to the community because we understand, like Phyllis said, that it could bring us a revenue of anywhere between 5 million and 11 million. But the reality is we have to take a multi-pronged approach, looking at ways to remove operational inefficiencies, but also looking for ways to increase revenue, whether that's the preschool programs or our after-school programs or community funding like CUSD United or a parcel tax, whatever kind of parcel tax that is. The reality is that there is no silver bullet, and so we have to look for all kinds of opportunities to be able to bring solvency back to our budget.
Okay, thank you. Putting COVID and school finance aside now, what is the most important issue in your mind that's facing CUSD? And specifically, how will you address the issue as a school board member? So what is the most important issue and how will you address it? And let's start with Sylvia. You're on, Sylvia.
You know, right now, my first priority is caring for our students, our family, and staff during this pandemic. The reality is that this is the hardest thing that we've ever had to do as a community in our lifetime. And our schools and our teachers are being asked, and our families are being asked to do something that's really, really hard. It's not just about the education, it's about really caring for the needs of our community. We went from providing about 1,700 meals a week to about 17,000 meals a week. We provided over 3,800 student devices, 800 hotspots, 800 teacher laptops. We need to advocate for student and site equity across all of our schools and equip our teachers so that they have the support that they need to teach effectively. But every resource comes at a cost, which is why we have to stabilize the budget so that that can be the ultimate priority, so that we can provide for the students, have enough money to pay our teachers, and have enough money so that we're not cutting programs every single year.
Okay, thank you. Will, how do you see it?
I'm going to go big picture here. You know, housing is an issue, is probably our biggest issue in the whole Bay Area, especially South Bay, especially the city of Cupertino. We need more dense housing. We need more apartment buildings so we can bring in families that can actually go to our schools so we don't have to close them anymore. So get the housing back on the plate of the city commission. We got to work better with City of Cupertino. They're not doing the right things. So the council's got to do their job and bring housing to bring in the families so they don't have to come from Manteca and Modesto and all these places far away to work as teachers and janitors. We got to do something bigger level here. We focus so internally, but there are bigger issues that are causing us to bump our heads against things, and we can't get past them until we address these larger issues. So housing is number one. Let's get our declining enrollment back up by bringing the families back into town again.
Phyllis, how do you see the most important issue?
So the two that we've already talked about are huge, the pandemic and the budget. I think the next priority for me is declining enrollment. Will alluded to it. We have pockets in our district with very small schools and pockets in our district with very large schools. Balancing that enrollment so that all schools and all of our facilities operate efficiently is a challenge for us. It's something that our Citizens Advisory Committee is working on. It's something that the board constantly considers. So I think that that's something that we need to really pay attention to so that we're operating schools at an efficient level where students and teachers and staff thrive. Thank you.
And Sudha, how do you see it?
So I think for me, the most important thing that we need to address is the transparency in communication and more parent engagement. You know, especially, for example, school closure decision has come in as a major surprise to many, many parents, and there is a lot of unrest in the community, and there is no clarity in school reopening plans as well. I've been dialing into every board meeting since many months, and it's heartbreaking to hear the public comments from our parents and teachers. It tells me that communication and trust is broken, and we need to fix that, and now, not 4 years later before next election. We are in the same state as we were 4 years ago, unfortunately, and our board needs to be proactive and not reactive. And of course, along with this, if we fix that transparency and if we get that parent trust back, we can fix the budget gap. We can get support for our next parcel tax introduction, because we have lost two big opportunities with Measure O and CUSD 25 programs, and increasing enrollment is not the solution, and it's not going to happen anytime in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question, we'll start with you, Will. There have been discussions about school facility usage and potential closures. What is your position on this?
Oh, we've kicked the can down the road for as long as we can, unfortunately. We probably should have closed them a decade ago. It's time we have to now. We do not have the families to fill the classrooms that we need anymore. It's tough. This is going to be a hard decision, and we're going to need to partner with our parent community and our other just all around community, because schools are the hub. I mean, without your schools, your property taxes are going to tank. Without your schools, your community falls apart. They are the fabric that holds us together. And so we really got to focus there. It's a tough one. I would love to think through the leases more. Maybe we can get better clients in, better tenants, something like that. But I mean, the next 4 years are going to be challenging. Schools are going to close. I need the community to get ready for that. Embrace yourselves. And Embrace the partnership. Think long-term. Think for the future of the district, not just how it affects your child right now, but think 10 years down the road, please.
Sylvia, what do you think?
You know, we love our schools, all of them. And it's only as a last resort that we would ever think about closing one of them. The hard fact is that we have lost on an average of 500 students in our district every year for the last 5 years. 500 students is about the size of an average elementary school. And every year we've had to cut programs and cut staff, and we've lost great teachers to other districts because we can't afford to give them salary increases. And we're operating on a shoestring budget in order to keep all 25 schools open. In a situation that impacts the community so greatly, it's important that we have community feedback and that it's integrated into the process, which is why we've commissioned a Citizens Advisory Committee, which Sudha is in, and it's made up of representatives from all of our schools, and they've been meeting regularly to come up with a proposal for the board to evaluate. The reality is we love our schools, but we love our students more, and we need to make the hard decisions so that our students can continue to have the high level of education that we expect.
Thank you. Sudha, what is your opinion?
So I come from a different perspective here. I feel that school closure should be the last resort since it's a huge impact on family lives daily, especially now during COVID times. The board should explore all the options before deciding on closing any schools. And if it already did, it should communicate with all the stakeholders transparently to the whole community on what options it considered before deciding on the closure of schools. And I personally think CUSD should not sell any land. Population will come back since families are not leaving. Enrollment decline is temporary. CUSD needs to meet the needs of parents, and then more students will come back from private schools and more will come. Any measure taken to keep them in mind. Unfortunately, they faced promoting the parcel tax last time. We should learn from the mistakes. School closure should be the last resort since it has a huge impact. And if school closures are inevitable after all options are exhausted, criteria should be very transparent and fair, and no schools should be exempted from consideration. And yes, I am part of CAC, Citizen Advisory Committee, and I am standing up for what I believe in, and I'm asking the right questions to make sure there is a very transparent, fair criteria being discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Phyllis?
Closing schools is painful. I was in the district in the 70s when we closed a lot of schools, 70s and early 80s. I don't think any of us wants to close schools. As Sylvia said, we love our schools, and they all serve communities. They all have their own culture and their own charm. When we look at the budget picture, the largest saving that we can get is through the closure of schools and the leasing of those sites. I would not support selling sites, but leasing them has the potential to bring us significant revenue. So yes, it should be a last resort. We should exhaust everything else first, and we should definitely work with our communities as we look to close schools, if we do. And all the buzz that's out there about the names of the schools that are going to be closed, everything is on the table. Nothing has been decided yet about school closures. So I want people to understand that we are not making decisions ahead of any of the committee's work. Thank you.
Thank you. If CUSD closes schools, should the district sell the properties or retain them? And if you believe they should be retained, how should those properties be used to relieve CUSD's financial stress? Let's start this one with Sylvia.
So actually, our staff has done some research on this. If we do lease out, so I also agree, I don't think anyone would advise the district at this point to sell any properties. But actually what we've looked into is the potential for revenue with leasing out of facilities. And so there's a potential for about $1 million a year ongoing. And that's what's really important when we're looking at budget, is selling a property would be a one-time revenue, but leasing would provide ongoing revenue. And so that would be something that we would be looking at. It would be about a million, and I apologize, I forgot the last part of your question.
Okay.
Oh, was there a second part of your question?
No, that was it. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay.
Will, how do you see it?
Absolutely no selling. We got to retain these assets. Property value is still wonderful in the Bay Area. It's going to stay like that for a while. It's in this strange insulated bubble. This is where the entrepreneur in me comes in, right? Let me put on my hat and think through this a little differently. And we could use them as co-working spaces or community centers, or even address some homelessness. You know, think through that. How about teacher housing? I know that was kicked around a few years ago with a lot of contention, but shoot, let's think about it again. Let's put it back on the table. Let's get our farthest away living teachers to live on one of our properties. Give them nice low fixed rent. Let's think through this some more. There are some other things we can do to shift this a little bit. Absolutely no to selling, but leasing long-term 20-year type contracts, that's going to give Jeff at the budget office a nice line to bake right into the financials. So that's the key here. We got to just think a little differently and work with our community some more.
And how do you see it, Phyllis?
I absolutely do not sell properties. If we ever had to buy properties again to build schools, it would be prohibitive. We would never be able to do that. So keep the properties for sure. Think of creative ways to use them. Leasing is certainly one, but there are other ways that they might be able to be used to generate revenue. One of the things about selling properties that I want people to understand is if you sell a school site, you can't put that money into the general fund. Legally, that money can only be used for capital improvements. So selling a site is not only a one-shot thing, you get the money and you're done, but you're very limited into how you can use that money. So I think selling sites would be very short-sighted. Thank you.
Okay, and Sudha? Sudha, how do you see it?
Yes, I also don't think that district should sell their land. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Sudha.
Yes. So I also think that the district should not sell any land because I strongly believe that population will come back since families are not leaving and enrollment decline is temporary. Leasing is definitely an option, but we should also make sure that, especially during COVID times, will we get the leases done? We should have the clarity before we decide to go that route. And we should also think of creative ways. One way would be sectional leasing, keeping the school open, keeping our neighborhood school, and see how we can make use of that and also expand our alternative programs as well, because they do have a lot of demand and there is a huge waiting list. Thank you.
Thank you. Sudha, let's have you start the next question. Roadshow meetings are being held in the community to address funding issues. What fresh and valuable ideas have you heard as an outcome of these roadshow meetings?
So it is, I want to start off by saying that our board should be proactive and not reactive. Yes, these budget roadshows are an excellent idea to keep the parents, to bring the communication and make them engaged and make them be aware of why the situation is like this. But I think it's unfortunate that it's being done right now, especially after the school closure decision has been announced as a possibility for saving or for increasing funds for us. So I think it's late in the game for showing that passion and showing that awareness towards the parent community. I think we should have done that much before. That's where I stand now.
Oh, thank you. And Phyllis, what is your experience of the effect of the roadshows?
Well, I'm I'm actually part of the Budget Roadshow. I'm one of the board members that sits in that group. Last year, when Craig Baker was our superintendent, he visited all 25 schools and he did a budget presentation, a little different from the Budget Roadshow, but he did an in-person presentation to all 25 schools in the district. And this year we're doing it in a little different format, of course, because of Zoom. But I think it's been effective. I think Jeff, our Chief Operating Officer, has done the information about the budget. And then Lori, our board president, is giving information about how the community can help us to bridge this budget gap. So I think it's been very effective. I just wish we had higher attendance at our budget roadshows, but we are recording them and we are releasing the slides. So I hope those people who have attended the budget roadshows will spread the word and make sure that all the people in their community are exposed to that information. Thank you.
Thank you. And what fresh and valuable ideas have you heard from them, Will?
So we have to do this every 5 and 8 years, right? Parents churn, they turn over and graduate up into the high school. And what's blowing my mind is I'm still hearing from so many parents saying, oh my God, I didn't realize it was such a bad problem. And that just amazes me. I mean, I've only been in this for 2 years and that's all I've heard is it's such a bad problem. But there's still parents that have no clue. I don't know if they don't care, they don't want to get involved, they won't hear it, they won't accept it, they're in denial, but it's real. And so I'm so proud that Jeff and the EC is going through and doing this. It's important. They have a great website now that's user-friendly, Public Schools 101, it's super easy. So it's an FAQ that people can be in their car waiting for something and they can log on real quick and check it out and learn a question. So hopefully there'll be less of these questions, these recurring same questions over and over again, and this will highlight that for us. Fresh and new, parents just want to make money. They want to raise money. They're like, how can I spend $2 million? I'll hurry up and do a Tiffin from 10 years ago. That's not going to work. We need recurring dollars, not one time.
Thank you. And Sylvia?
Yeah, so actually the budget roadshows that the others were mentioning, that's our 3rd round. So Dr. Baker did them 2 years ago. He went and visited all 25 schools. Just last year, each of us on the board went to go visit all 25 sites as well for Measure O, and now we're doing a 3rd round. Really in terms of what we're seeing, the great thing is that our parents are engaging more now than ever before, and we are getting that traction. I think in terms of some fresh and innovative ideas, what we need to realize that the community isn't just our current parents. It really is a matter of looking at all the residents in the area, and we have 6 cities, 25 schools, 6 cities, so many jurisdictions, and so many different communities. People want to be engaged with the schools, not even if they're alumni parents, even if their kids have already long graduated. So I think those are some exciting things that we can be looking forward to in terms of community engagement.
Thank you. And I'm going to go around for everybody to ask you, who are the stakeholders for CUSD? Specifically, we mentioned a few as we've been going around, but are there any others besides the ones that you've already mentioned? And let's start with Will.
Of course, the students, then the parents, and then you have your other alumni community and just residents that have no kids within. But then you also have, you got to keep opening up the flower, right? You got to let it blossom up. And so you have your city council electeds, you have your county electeds. It really does. They're all stakeholders. You know, education should be the core of our society. It has to be the core of our society again. We have to really focus on this and have a paradigm shift here and make it the most important profession out there. They're just as important as doctors and engineers. We need these people taking care of our kids that see them more than we do in common school hours and make it right for them. We have to make it right for them. Otherwise, we're just going to keep failing here.
Sylvia, how do you see the stakeholders?
In the end, what we're trying to do is we're trying to serve all children. because we want to deliver on the promise of public education for our kids. And so when we look at who that involves, it does take that village. It takes an entire community. It is our students, it is our teachers, it is our school staff, the secretaries, the librarians, our custodians, the folks that work on facilities. It's the folks that are doing all of the admin work for us as well. And of course, it's our parents, because in terms of the community that we have, it's so engaged. And in Cupertino Union School District, we have the advantage of having a community that really values education and is so eager and so able to help and pitch in and be a part of what's happening in the district.
Thank you. Sudha, how do you see it?
So I agree with the rest of the board as well, or rest of the members, panel members as well, that we have kids, we have parents, we have staff, we have teachers, we have administration. All of them are stakeholders, but I would go even a bit more deeper, especially when it comes to parents. There are three types of parents here: engaged, most engaged parents, less engaged parents, and absolutely no engaged parents. But as a board member, as a district, it is our responsibility, because they are looking for that sort of transparent communication, that messaging, so that they know, they are aware of what's happening in the district. That way we can bring in more community engagement, and also community members who are not parents. We need to make sure that we get our messaging right and reach out to every stakeholder of the district to make sure that the quality of education, the health of our district is absolutely great. Thank you.
Thank you. And Phyllis, how do you see the stakeholders?
Much of what everyone else has said, students, parents, the greater community as a whole. We have a large senior community in all 6 of the cities that we serve. And I certainly think we need to consider them in any decisions that we make. Business owners, I think, are an important part of our community. We need to partner with our businesses to help us in a variety of ways, not only financially, but other ways as well. And we also have open enrollment in our district. So we have students coming in from outside. So some of our people who are employed in our local companies and our local businesses bring their children to Cupertino to go to school. And those are also a part of our stakeholder group. So I think we need to engage all of our citizens, all of those folks in making us the best school district and doing the best that we can for our kids.
Thank you. The Citizens Advisory Committee has been charged with developing a concrete plan to use facilities in new ways that take into account both immediate, urgent boundary issues, or budgetary issues, sorry, as well as provide long-term fiscal solvency and stability. They have been contributing via meetings. How would you rate their contributions? And let's start with Sudha on that one.
So yes, I am a part of a citizen advisory committee, and I love the idea that the board put forward, forming a committee, making sure that there are parents, staff, teachers involved in that group. However, I've mentioned this very openly that I'm a little disappointed with the charge that has been reduced. When I joined the committee, I went in with the assumption that I have all the options on the table, one being avoiding school closure also, and come up with long-term fiscal solutions, but it has been reduced. Yes, to repurpose facility usage, but with the assumption that school closure is happening, and come up with a list of the schools. And that's a bit disagreement that I have. And it's okay. I've been talking to the rest of the members. My experience has been great. They are open to listening, but I just wish that the charge of the CAC was more expanded to have all the options on the table, which is including avoiding school closure also. Thank you.
Okay. Phyllis, how would you rate the contributions?
We get a report from the superintendent about the Citizens Advisory Committee at every one of our board meetings. I'm very excited about this committee and what they're going to bring to us at the end of October. So I expect their contributions to be very good. So far they have been. And I hope that they come up with some creative solutions. in addition to school closures. I know that one of the things we've said is that school closures might have to be there, but I'm hoping that the committee will also consider some other ways that we can have long-term stability. And I think that's the key. Will said it earlier, we've been kicking the can down the road here for a long time. And I think whatever advice they give us and whatever decisions we come to should be for the long term. So boards of education 10 years from now aren't doing the same thing that we're trying to do now. Thank you.
Will, I see you nodding your head. How do you see it?
Yeah, I have some insights. I'm not on it, but I have some friends on it, and it is tough. I want them to explore a lot of options, not just school closing matrices. Like I come to business and you have decision trees and charts and things like that. Like I want to see some levers, some different possibilities, like literally a decision matrix. Hopefully in October, we'll see this multiple. I would love to see 20 different options, right? And the funny thing is, the board doesn't have to do anything they say. That's what's really interesting to me. It's just a group of people getting together, brainstorming, coming up with some stuff. But if the board doesn't like any of it, they just kick it down the road. So I think CAC can't be just a small one-time temporary committee. They have to be long-term. They need to stick it together, like the Budget Advisory Committee has been around for a long time. So I think this one's going to have to be around a while. It's not just a one-time situation here.
Thank you. Sylvia, your thoughts?
Yeah, so for one thing, actually the charge for the CAC has not changed. It has always been about repurposing our facilities and looking at ways to save the district some money, some cost, as well as looking for ways to increase revenue, and really doing that while at the same time trying to find a way to balance enrollment. And so the CAC came to us and asked us to clarify, and we did clarify for them as a board. Really, all options are on the table as long as we're able to address the decline as well. As far as how the CAC is doing, I think they're doing a great job. I'm actually a part of the enrollment planning committee, and so I do hear about the work that they're doing, and I know that they're working many hours beyond just the actual meeting time. We also want to make sure that there's transparency throughout that process, which is why their meeting minutes are always posted right after their meetings are done. And then as well as they are giving us a report and an update at the same time that the public is hearing about it.
Thank you. And let's stick with you, Sylvia, for the next question. What challenges, if any, arise in educating special needs children during COVID? And what will you do to address these new challenges?
Absolutely. That has been a big thing that we've really wanted to focus on and address. And that's what's happening with our phase 2. So we talked a little bit earlier about phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 really is identifying some of our special needs students and bringing them in for one-on-one assessments and for interventions. So we're starting to do it with little groups, and we want to make sure that we do it safely and cautiously. We've put in the equipment so that our staff can be safe, our interventionists can be safe, but we also want to make sure that we're providing the support that the parents and the students need. And we've been able to do it one step at a time, also identifying other students who have higher needs as well, whether they're English language learners, students who are in poverty, students who are not doing as well academically. Those are all vulnerable populations that we have a responsibility to.
Okay. And Will, how about you?
This one hurts a lot, Marianne. So Stevens Creek Elementary has a pretty high population of children on the spectrum. Unfortunately, one of the teachers lost their home up in the hills. So it's not just impacting the children, it's impacting even the teachers. And the problem is children are afraid. Autistic children, they don't like to make eye contact. You can't slam a mask on them and expect them to keep it on. It just doesn't work. So these are kids that need one-on-one assistance. And they're struggling. I really feel bad for them. I'm lucky. William has a simple IEP with reading and speech, and we're working through that with one-on-one online sessions. But it really is those children on the spectrum, and we have a large population of them in our district. people come to this district for those children specifically, and we're failing those families. I really feel bad for them, unfortunately.
Phyllis, how do you see it?
I worry about our special education population and other special needs groups like our language learners and students who are struggling academically and socially. I worry that they don't have the face-to-face learning. And I hope that we can bring those small cohorts back sooner than later. I will have to say though, I had the opportunity on 2 occasions to observe special education classes in session. One was one-on-one with an autistic boy, and the other one was a small group session. And I think that without the face-to-face, which I think those kids, all kids need, I think we're doing a really, really good job working with these kids in small groups and in one-on-one to make sure that we're meeting their needs. So it's a worry, and I hope that we can get past it soon. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Sudha, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've been talking to many special ed parents, especially the last 2-3 weeks, about 25 of them so far. And it's heartbreaking, it's sad. I understand their point of view. For some of them, they have been put in together with the rest of the class, which was tough because they need that one-on-one attention. And some parents opted for homeschooling, and unfortunately their resources have been cut off, which is also very sad. And they mentioned to me that they have repeatedly sent emails to the board and also to the district, but no communication on that. I think we should definitely look into that and also start opening up for them in small cohorts, maintaining the safety of the kids with social distancing guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is about the home study program. And we'll start that one off with Phyllis. What is the home study program and how is it working?
The home study program has been in existence in Cupertino for a very long time. I want to say 40 years. And it's had more and fewer students over the years as people need it because they're in professions where they travel a lot, or their children are in athletics that require them to be out of the country or out of the area a lot. It's been very successful. We've had 1 teacher in that program for a long time, and now we've increased that program to more teachers because we've had more students who are interested in it. So I think it's very effective. The parents essentially do the teaching, but they meet regularly with a resource teacher from our school district who provides the curriculum and works with them as they work through the state standards. So our feedback from our home study parent group is high. I think they're very satisfied with the level of education that their children are receiving. Thank you.
Will, how do you think about it?
I'm not incredibly familiar. I mean, I've learned about it more recently because there's been some comparisons to the current distance learning. Well, at least differentiating from distance learning and home study. I haven't explored it much. To have the patience of a teacher it's a special breed. I couldn't do it myself. I know that. So I commend any parents that can do that. Like Phyllis said, it sounds like it's rolling well. There has been an increase in enrollment because of this, and there probably will be a further increase if we do decide to go back in January or even sooner. I hear from families daily, I'm not going back. I'm not taking them back. My father lives with me. I can't have this exposure risk. So I'm really proud that we have this in place. You know, we're a leg up on many other districts around the country. So we probably are going to have to expand it. I won't enroll in it. I'm not going to be in it, but whoever does decide to, kudos to you. I fully understand your decision and support it.
Okay. Sudha, what is your thought on it?
So as Phyllis said, homeschooling is not a new concept. It's definitely there. And one of the good things about running for a board is the communication aspect. I've been talking to many parents. I've been reaching out, and I did reach out to many parents in the district who are doing homeschooling. And I see mixed feedback over there. Some parents love it. Some parents, it's tiring for them, and I understand that. But I definitely would want to ask the district for some data as to how many parents have opted for homeschooling, especially now after the distance learning mode has been activated. And if it's working out great, I think something that we should learn from them, but also try and see how else we can help them to make sure that the mixed feedback turns into a great positive experience for them, because they are doing it. I want them to do it by the choice, but not as without having any options that they chose homeschooling.
Okay, thank you. Sylvia?
I can actually answer that question. We actually have 3 homeschool classes right now, and it's been exciting to see it grow over the years. In our district, I think one of the things that we really value is parent choice. And we've seen that through the way that we have our alternative programs. We have 4 different alternative schools, and we've had this home study program for the last 20 years, like Phyllis mentioned. What's nice is that it gives our parents an opportunity to have a lot of different options. As I mentioned earlier, as part of the Santa Clara County School Boards Association, at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were meeting all the time, a lot of other districts were looking into how to start a home study program. And so they really came to us and said, can you give us some sort of template, a blueprint? And we were able to provide that kind of resource to a lot of the other neighboring districts that wanted to offer something similar. And so I think it's been good. The feedback has been great from the parents that we've heard from. There's always going to be room for improvement with any program in any situation, because that's who we are. We always want to have a growth mindset. But I think in terms of the opportunities and resources that we're offering, it's important that we give parents the opportunities to choose.
Thank you. The next question addresses the digital divide. COVID has highlighted the digital divide and economic inequities among families, and specifically the impact on students. Beyond the laptops and the hotspots that have been provided for the families, what more does CUSD need to do to address the digital divide? And let's start that one with you, Sylvia.
Sure. I think I mentioned a little earlier, over the course of these last 6 months, we've provided about 3,800 student devices, 800 hotspots, 800 teacher laptops. And so in terms of that digital divide, it is there. And it's not necessarily as stereotypical as you might think it is. It's really all of us, I think, in our families, we're fighting for bandwidth in our homes. We're having to upgrade laptops. We're having to make choices as parents about devices for our children that we never would have made those choices before. And so how do we as a district support the community as we're navigating not just the digital divide, but also the additional emotional costs that come with that? So in order to do that, I think one of the things that we've had to do is really meet students where they're at for the technical difficulties that they have. We've created a technical hotline, a hotline that has been used so many times in the last couple months as we've gotten both our teachers, our students, and even our parents up to speed. We've had to upgrade technology. We've had to bring in additional digital platforms for our teachers to use, to give them videos, to give them things to help support their teaching efforts. So it really does go beyond just the actual devices. It goes into infrastructure, and it goes into really looking at system-wide, how do we make things available for students?
Thank you. And Will, how do you see the digital divide and what we need to do?
Thank you for giving out the devices. William has an iPad. We ran out of laptops. We needed one. It's so helpful. Bandwidth is a struggle. Yeah. Equity's been a challenge with this district. We're so large. The west side's good, right? There's a lot of money over there. East side and north, not so much. We have Title I's in San Jose and Sunnyvale. I've heard horror stories of kids setting up shop in closets because their house is so packed they can't find a place that's quiet. Some kids don't have an energy. They don't have power that's available to them. Rolling blackouts are kicking people off. I think just last Wednesday, a bunch of kids got kicked off. So there's issues here, and that's why I think it is important to open up the classrooms for this. It's a small population, but it's important. We can't let them fall behind. So we got to get these kids in classrooms that can't plug in their charger. Otherwise, their iPad that's loaned is no good. So it's a tough one here. We got to help on the inequities as best we can. And once again, balancing the screen time. My Lord, my kid's brain has been so remapped on how to look at a gadget, and getting him to read and go out and run, it's becoming more and more challenging. So I'm sorry, I'll stop there.
Thank you. Phyllis?
Yes, Sylvia gave all the statistics about how many devices and hotspots we've already given out. I think that part of the digital divide we've pretty well taken care of. We do have issues though. We have families where there are maybe 2 working parents and 3 kids, and all of them need to be on a device during the day doing distance learning or their job. And I think that's a challenge that I don't know that we as a district can solve that piece of it, but our help desk has certainly been helpful to our parents and our teachers and our students in making sure that everybody has the technical skill that they need to be able to manage the Zoom meetings and all the things that are going on. I worry about screen time a lot. I think that the whole notion of distance learning with screen time is something that we need to pay attention to, and I think we are. I think we're trying to make sure that kids have both synchronous and asynchronous learning so they're not on the screens all the time. Yeah. There's the stop sign. Thank you.
Sudha, what do you think CUSD should do for it?
So technology can be a boon or a bane. We need to make sure that we use our technology and tools the right way. And I come from a corporate world. Having worked at Google and Microsoft, I absolutely know the importance of the right usage of technology. Yes, it's a lot of screen time, it's hurting. We need to make sure that everybody in the district has access to our digital devices, and we need to balance that screen time. But one thing that we should be doing is constantly engage with the parents and kids, take feedback from them and see where we need to improve on and how we can balance out the quality of education so that the quality of education is not lost, and we are balancing out the tools and technologies that we have in the right way. And there's nothing like beating coming back to schools, and I want to see that happening so that we don't have issues like this. And we need to empower right set of tools and technologies like whiteboarding session, breakouts, a lot more leverage that we can take off with the limited resources that we have right now, which I don't think we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, unfortunately, we're at the last question. And there are many more questions that we wanted to have you talk to, but the last question, and each of you will have 90 seconds to answer this one. And that is, please state and answer what question you wish we had asked you during this forum. So what would you like to have been asked? And let's start with Sylvia and go to Will, Phyllis, and then Sudha. Sylvia, what question do you think we should have asked you?
So I guess the question I wish I'd been asked was, what do I think are the silver linings that have come out of this pandemic? And my answer would be resiliency and innovation. We've had a chance to redefine what authentic learning looks like for our students, and so much creativity has come out of it. Our teachers are designing new methods to teach everything from writing to art, and there's so much more collaboration happening across grade levels and across our school sites. I think schools, more than any other institution, have shown our country and our students what it looks like to be resilient and entrepreneurial. And as a school board member, for me, I've listened intently to parents and teachers and students, and I don't want to just go back to the way things were. I'm going to take the lessons that we've had the opportunity to learn in the midst of hardship about scheduling, team teaching, constant communication, and how to best care for our students, families, and staff, and make sure that we as a district don't just go back to normal, but that we create something new and better. Our current board, together with our passionate community of families and dedicated staff, are the best people to make sure that our students get the top-notch education that CUSD is known for. When our schools are strong, our communities are strong, and that is what I want for our district for generations to come.
Thank you. Will, what question?
Hey, Will, how can you leverage our district's really cool alternative programs more? I got lucky. William just got into McAuliffe a couple of weeks ago. I discovered that co-op alternative 2 years ago on the campaign trail and fell in love with it. You know, I wasn't getting all the parent engagement that I wanted at the typical schools. And so I looked around like, hey, where's the most parent engagement in the district? And McAuliffe tended to have it because it's a very different model. Some people call it hippy dippy. I think it's great. I think it's awesome to mandate parents to come in twice a day and help build curriculum. I like the K through 8 model so these kids can stick to pods for a long time. I wish I could have got them in earlier. There's a long wait list. Maybe we need to make another one like that, or a couple more. You know, some of our schools that have lower enrollment, maybe we need to transition them to alternatives so there's more demand at that site. These are things we can explore a little more. This comes back to the CAC recommendations and ways to fix our budget and declining enrollment and balance it out. Let's beef up our Mandarin program. Let's beef up our co-op program. Let's get them bigger and better. Let's make a STEAM school. Let's think through it a little more. Like Sylvia said, let's come out of this thing better than we were. We have an opportunity now to do that. So let's embrace it and take advantage of it.
Thank you. And Phyllis.
Okay, I wish you had asked what we're doing to increase communication and transparency. And the answer is we have done a lot. We've had a number of listening sessions with the community and staff, particularly around declining enrollment. That was last winter. We encourage public comment at all of our board meetings. We go sometimes for hours. We've been a few board meetings this past summer, went until midnight with lots and lots of public comment. We listened to all of it. And our town hall meetings have been fairly new, and that's been successful. Those are run by Stacy McAfee-Yao, our interim superintendent. And in fact, there's one this afternoon at 4 o'clock. If you can tune in, they're always good. We hear a lot of good ideas from those. Our budget roadshows are being well received, and I think giving our community lots of information about the budget. Our board office hours are something new. In fact, it was Sylvia's idea. We did it a number of years ago and it didn't work, and she brought it back. And 2 board members are on each of the board office hours, and they respond. It's a Q&A. It's a 1-hour Q&A, and they happen about every 3rd week. Check the website and you'll find those. And then we have a lot of parent participation on district committees that give us lots of good ideas and give us lots of parent input. So I think communication and transparency are critical. I think our current board is really good at that. And hopefully that we will all continue and even improve more. Thank you.
Thank you. Sudha?
The question I wish you had asked me is, what is my vision for CUSD? Our parents and community is tired of hearing budget deficit as an excuse for many new proposals or any new student programs today. I want to see our district in a state where it is budget deficit free, so we can focus on the quality of education, focus on super quality student resource programs, workshops, collaborations with reputed universities. I want to see every parent, every teacher, every mom, dad saying proudly that they are part of the best district, Cupertino School District. And academics is only one part. I want to see our district producing the best innovators of our country who will make their district and country proud. A well-balanced, stress-free education is what I want to see. And if elected to the board, I promise to stick to my commitment and will bring in honesty and transparency in decision-making in collaboration with our parents and community. I would ask myself if I have exhausted every possible option before deciding on a specific path, especially if it impacts the community. I would be true to myself and will stand up for what I believe in. We need a board that will turn the declining trend into a hope that community is looking forward. We need need a board with full of go-getters and out-of-box thinkers to solve problems. And I hope I have conveyed today how I can solve our budget long-term and short-term problems. And my priorities, my vision for the district is absolutely clear, and how I can achieve those. And I respectfully ask your support and vote for coming election. And let's not mix politics and education. It's our kids at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Phyllis, Sylvia, Sudha, and Will. Thank you for participating in this forum. I know I learned a lot, and I think we all did. Thank you again to the candidates and the attendees. We had well over 100 attendees for this forum. And a very big thank you to the Rotary of Cupertino. Now, you want to make sure that you vote preferably before November 3rd, but definitely vote, because you must be present to win in a democracy. Thank you again.